When it comes to a handheld DMR amateur radio, you've got a lot to choose from. In this video, we'll take a look at one of the top-end models. DMR, or digital mobile radio, is one of three popular modes of digital communications used by ham radio operators. Since it was originally a business-related protocol, that means that there are a lot of manufacturers making DMR radios. Most of them can be used by hams in the ham bands. This is likely why DMR is such a popular digital mode. There are lots of radios to choose from. They come in a wide variety of price points, and there are tens of thousands of users worldwide. I'm assuming that if you're looking for information on this radio, you already understand the basics of DMR. If not, please take a look at my DMR programming video on the Gadget Talk channel. Speaking of the channel, if you find this video helpful, please click the thumbs up button and subscribe to the Gadget Talk channel. Click the bell icon to be notified when I post new videos. As I said earlier, unlike the other two digital modes, DMR is supported by several, mostly Chinese, radio manufacturers. You can find basic DMR radios between $60 and $90 US. Another group of models is at about the $160 price point, and a couple like this AnyTone AT-D878UV handheld is about $200. There are a couple of things that set these radios and price points apart. One is build quality. More expensive radios are generally a bit more rugged. Another thing is memories. More expensive radios have huge memory banks, which is important for DMR. The D878UV has enough memories to capture the current DMR user base. This means that your radio's display will show who's calling and who you're talking to. There's also a huge number of memories to set as either analog channels, as you would with an FM analog radio, or with talk groups for DMR use. But radio memories is just the start. The D878UV can be set to broadcast an APRS signal that, when paired with the radio's GPS capability, will allow others to know where you are. For example, if you like to take an ATV out in the woods or to hike, a spouse or other family member can follow along and know where you are in case of an emergency. The GPS will also display your position, helping you to keep from getting lost. GPS also allows you to program a roaming function that allows you to seamlessly switch between repeaters within the same talk group as you travel. Let's take a quick look at what comes in the box. So here's the box that the 878 comes in. It's pretty heavy. Seems like there's a fair amount of stuff in there. So let's break into it and see what we've got. First thing we'll be looking at is, if we look at the 878, is the owner's manual. It's pretty comprehensive, diagrams, charts, troubleshooting, whole 9 yards. It looks like it's a pretty good way to get started. So that's the owner's manual. There are a couple of AnyTone stickers, little advertising things if you're into that kind of thing. But let's look at the radio first. So the radio itself is pretty hefty. It's got some weight to it. It feels nice and solid. And so you see that we've got a number of knobs and buttons on here. We've got the keypad with numbers, and we've got the P1 and P2 keys there. And so those are programmable keys through the various menus in the customer programming software. There's a couple of more programming keys here on the side, as well as an alarm button here on the top that is also user programmable. Since we're up here on the top, you can see that this has got the SMA connector for the antenna with the spike or plug end in the radio, and so the antenna has the socket end. So if you're going to be using a third-party antenna, you'll want to make sure that you get an antenna with the proper connector. As we look at the top, we've got two knobs. This one has a click as you move it, and this is for changing channels. And then this one will turn it on and change the volume. So you can see the screen just came up. This is the first time I've turned it on, and so I would have a number of these things that I'm going to need to change. But at this point, I'm going to turn it off and fully charge the battery before I start messing with the radio as it recommends in the instructions. On this side, there's a little rubber door, and it has the typical Kenwood or Baofeng style connector there, the 3mm, 2mm kind of connector to connect a headphone, wired headset, or a speaker mic could go in there. On the back is a pretty good sized battery. A fair amount of the weight of this handset is taken up in the battery, and so you just clip it on the bottom here and then snap it in right there. Now these two screws are for the belt clip. The belt clip screws into the battery. I'm not a big belt clip guy, so I'm happy that they don't come assembled that way. And I'll show you that belt clip here in just a second. You also, of course, get the wall wart for the power. It has got a 100 to 240 volt input, and its output is 12 volts at 1,000 milliamps. So it's a 12 volt kind of wall wart. These vary from radio to radio, so one of the first things I'm going to do is label this so I don't try to plug it in to the wrong radio. You also get a desktop charger or a cradle type charger. And I find it interesting that with some of the more moderate to low priced radios, the charger comes with it, whereas some of the more expensive radios, you have to spend another $30 to $50 for a desktop charger. This is very nice to get the charger. It allows you to have it plugged in, sitting on your desk, and so you can just drop the radio in when it needs to be charged. So that's the charger. Again, I'll be labeling that. You can see it just plugs in here from the wall wart and you'll be ready to go. This is the programming cable that comes with it. It's got a USB alpha side here that would plug into your computer. And so here is that 3mm, 2mm type plug that goes into the sockets that I just showed you on the radio. And that will allow you to communicate with the customer programming software on your computer. Here's the belt clip. I've kept it in the plastic because there are a couple of really tiny screws. Again, I'm not real big into belt clips, but it's there if you need it. Otherwise, I'm going to label it and store it away. The last two items that we'll look at, one is a wrist strap that will fit through a little loop in the radio. That way you can mount this around your wrist to keep a hold of it. And so wrist straps are something that I do use from time to time, so I'll probably be mounting that wrist strap. And then, of course, here's this dual band antenna. It's labeled as a high gain antenna, and you can see here in the socket side that the little pin or the plug in the radio will go in there, and then it'll screw down. So that's the little semi-flexible antenna that comes with the AnyTone. So that's what comes in the box. I got this D878UV from Bridgecom Systems. They have a couple of what I'd call value-added features to their radios. First is what they call Bridgecom University. When you buy from them, they give you access to a whole library of short, targeted videos to help you program the various functions of your radio. The fact is, this is a pretty complicated device, and having expert demos of most of the features is a huge time saver. They also offer the CPS or customer programming software as a free download, and the radio includes the programming cable to connect to your Windows computer. For those who don't want the mess with programming chores, they also offer a plug-and-play version with DMR users and talk groups and other data preloaded on the device for an additional fee. There are a couple of versions of the 878 you can choose from. For example, you can choose whether you want a Bluetooth version or not. Bridgecom also packages the radio with a hotspot and other accessories. They also seem to have some kind of giveaway contest going nearly all the time. Be aware, they communicate frequently via email. I mainly use my radio to connect to the DMR networks via my hotspot. I often keep my D878UV on in the background and listen in on my favorite talk groups and join the conversation when the spirit moves me. With thousands of talk groups on a huge variety of topics and locations, it's easy to find a group of hams discussing something interesting. Since this handheld radio transmits in the UHF and VHF bands, that means a technician class operator can legally use this radio and enjoy conversations with other hams from all over the world. All in all, the AT-D878UV is a bit on the pricey side, but comes with the full suite of DMR capabilities built into a sturdy form factor. Another downside to this radio is that its wide variety of capability makes it a fairly complicated device with the associated learning curve. There is a fairly active Facebook group dedicated to the 878. Many of the posts are asking for help on one thing or another, which goes to my point about the learning curve. I've had this radio a while, and there have been several firmware upgrades. The good news is that bugs get fixed and features are sometimes updated. The bad news is that you're frequently updating the firmware with those associated inconveniences. So, if you're familiar with DMR and have some experience with advanced radios, this model should be near the top of your list. On the other hand, if you're a new ham with little experience, you might be better served with a less expensive DMR radio where you can gain some experience and then decide whether the advanced features of the 878 are worth it to you. BuyTwoWayRadios.com and Radioddity.com both have less expensive DMR radios that would make good starter radios. As I mentioned, I got my 878 from Bridgecom Systems. They've developed a good reputation for service, and you can find them on Facebook in addition to their website. Again, if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Thanks for watching. 73.